Morena, gentlemen, and welcome to Friday's lesson. Just a reminder that you do need to look at those checklists to make sure that you are up to date with the work that has been set this week. Okay, so today we're looking at poetry and in particular Follower, the poem by Seamus Heaney. So as we've already discussed, poems can be very different. They can be different lengths. They can have different intentions. And we've got a different number of different kinds of poem that you need to be aware of in order to be ready for whatever you get at the end of your end of term exam. So narrative poetry, a narrative, as the name suggests, is a poem where the poet describes an event or series of events, tells a story. Narration is a storytelling. Rap is a modern style of poetry, often associated with rhyme, wordplay, and strong rhythm. So the spoken word poem that you have started this term by listening to is a form of rap using heavy rhymes and wordplay and rhythm to make us want to listen and to accentuate certain words which then put across the poet's message. You should have already written these notes into the front of your red exercise books under a heading Poetry, because these are the questions that are important for us to come to when we start really looking in depth at a poem. Who is speaking in it? Is it the poet or a character? Who is it written for? And what is the purpose? Persuade, narrate, argue, reflect. So if you haven't already done this note taking, please would you pause the video and do that now. You can also find these all these slides on GrammarNet. At the bottom you've got a new folder, a poetry folder, and these resources are in there, the poetry terminology that you need to know for your exam and these poetry slides, so take a look at those too, please. Okay, we're moving on to thinking about stanzas. I want you to just get this terminology in your brain. Can you take these notes, please, these highlighted ones? So pause the video and just write these into your red exercise book as well. Line length and pace is very important, and the length of lines in a poem can be a big clue towards understanding it. So at this point, I want us to move back to terminology slides, which are at the bottom of your page, as I've said. Click on that there, and down at the left-hand side, you open that, and you'll get this sheet. And the terminology, these terms you really need to be familiar with. Many of them you already know, the figurative language ones, for instance, and many of these other ones you know as well. Some of them you won't have come across before, and some of them you will have forgotten. So rhyme, very important in the spoken word poems that we've listened to. And there's a difference. You can have different kinds of rhyme. You can have full rhyme where each vowel and end consonant is the same, like night and delight. That's a full rhyme. You can also have half rhymes like chuckle and fickle. So the vowel sound cha, a, and I for fickle are different, but the ends are the same. And spoken word poets and rappers use that kind of rhyme all the time, and it's very effective. Meter and rhythm. So rhythm is important, and we've already talked about enjambment, where a sentence keeps going on, and I want you to think about what is the effect of that. So let's go back now to have a look at the poem itself. My father worked with a horse plough. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. So what do you think is the effect of this pause at the end? My father worked with a horse plough. Pause, breathe. Then I start the next line. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. Can you see how the enjambment, which is when you just keep on going at the end of a line, there's no pause into the next one, it speeds things up. The effect of speeding something up. I think here, with this simile that we're going to talk a little bit more about, the way that is sped up through the enjambment to the end of that next line, it emphasizes how strong and capable and flowing almost. His father seemed to the little boy as he did his work. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. He's that speed that takes it to the end kind of brings into our mind the picture of his dad doing the ploughing. So between the shafts and the furrow, he's in the plough. So the shaft is a technical term for the lines of the plough, and the furrow is what's made in the ground as you go along with the plough. Okay, so we're going to just pop back to the poetry terminology slides now and have a look at this, because you need to know something about end stopped lines. Lines where a sentence comes to a complete close at the end of the line causes a pause that disrupts the rhythm, but an enjambment is where the sentence carries over into the next line. Okay, so keep those in mind. Looking now at the questions that I've asked you to look at. What occupation did the speaker's father used to have? He was a farmer. 3 examples to show the speaker is proud of what his father used to be. I'm not going to go through all those, but we'll begin at the beginning. Identify the simile and explain its effect. I'll do that now. And then how does the poet feel at the end of the last stanza? So let's go back and take a look at. We looked at the enjambment. Before we talk about the simile, we should talk about poetic voice, because what is the poetic voice here? Who is talking? Well, it's a poem about a son remembering, so looking back on himself as a young boy. But the poet, the person in the poem, the persona, is the adult man who is looking back, because by the time you get to the last stanza, he's looking back at himself as a child, a nuisance, tripping, falling, yapping always. But today it is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away. And so he is the adult. He is an adult looking back at his childish self, who used to admire his father, and now acknowledges that his father is the nuisance instead, who wants to be involved and wants to watch him farming and to be still feeling like he has a contribution to make, and he's actually a bit annoyed. He finds him irritating, which is kind of sad. There's a real sadness about this poem. There's a sort of melancholy, slight melancholy tone that strong things that are strong and wonderful change and get older, and also there's a recognition inside himself of a real impatience with his dad that maybe his dad didn't have, because if you look back, we are told that sometimes his dad rode him on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. He was kind to his little boy, and involved him to a certain extent. Okay, so let's just do one more thing, which is to look at this simile, which is important. His shoulders globed like a full sail strung between the shafts and the furrow. So this simile is the first obvious point where we see that the little boy used to admire his dad because he was so strong. A globe, remember, is a ball, like our planet is a globe, and a full sail strung. A full sail means a sail full of wind, and if you've seen boats out on the harbour, their sails are full of wind, and they might be in that kind of shape, straining with the wind inside them, looking strong and purposeful, going forward. And so this man obviously had big, round shoulders that looked incredibly capable. He was a very strong person and a strong and capable farmer. And there's lots of other things in here that you will be able to see from the slides, the detailed slides here, that tell us about what an expert he was. And that's another reason why his son admired him. He could do things perfectly without breaking. The sod rolled over without breaking at the head rig with a single, The Single Pluck of Rains, A Single Pluck of Rains. He only had to do it once, didn't have to do it twice. The Sweating Team, that's talking about the horses. They were working hard. He turned around and back into the land. So he was a very capable farmer. Okay, so you can have a look at those slides that are there. Okay, so we're not actually studying this poem as part of the poems that you are going to be writing essays on. We're going to move now on to 2 poems if we've got time. We're going to take it slowly. We'll start with 1 poem, and if we've got time, we'll get on to a second one for you to really get to know really well for your exam. I think that this was a useful poem to show you how poetry works and how much you can get into a reasonably short poem, how much flavour. So there's a lot of flavour in this poem about a young boy wanting to be like his dad, and then becoming a man and seeing his dad grow old, and there's sadness in that, and it's a reflection. It's a reflective poem about how things change and how people get old and the young take over. All right, that's enough from me. So have a good Friday, and look forward to catching up again with you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye. I meant to say, don't forget to do your little spelling quiz. Use it for your own learning. There's no point in you looking up the words and then getting them right. I'm not interested in that. Just use it as you see fit to learn those words so that you're a step ahead for your end of term spelling tests, spelling in the exam. Okay, great. Bye.